So, I have a bit of a nasty habit of getting immensely into weird and somewhat niche games, and then refusing to shut up about them, to the point of infuriating, well, pretty much everyone I know. For example,
hey guys, have you heard of Etrian Odyssey? It's on the 3DS, it's really good, you should all try it. Hey, so I've been playing Radiant Historia, it's really good, you guys should get it. Everybody listen to me, Final Fantasy 14 is incredibly good, you should all fucking play it. Pay the money, please, God.
Shut the fuck up, I swear to God.
recently I get the distinct feeling I've been doing it again with the Atelier series. After first trying it out a couple months back, I've found myself adding game after game to my collection, and I've honestly adored all of the ones I've played. Problem is, I feel like I have issues trying to explain why exactly they clicked with me, because there's no way I can do it concisely without either alienating people by talking about the parts that really only appeal to my weird weeaboo side, or I end up just rambling for minutes about how amazing it is and then falling back into the aforementioned nasty habit. Then I realized something. Yeah, I have a YouTube channel, don't I? So that's why I'm here today, trying to explain why this weird, generic-looking, simple RPG series has me absolutely hooked, and talking about why Atelier Rorona is good, I swear. God help us all.
始まる
Atelier Rorona is the 11th game in the Atelier series, originally releasing on the PlayStation 3 in 2009 in Japan, and the next year in the rest of the world, receiving mixed to negative reviews, with many critics arguing that the simplistic gameplay and low stakes make it a bad and weak RPG. These people are cowards who have clearly never played an Atelier game before. No, seriously, check the Metacritic page for this game and read literally any review if you've ever played an Atelier game before. It's kinda hilarious. So, yeah, what exactly is Atelier, you may be asking? And that's very fair. Atelier exists in that sort of weird niche area of RPGs where you've probably seen it laying around on a shelf at GameStop but have never really questioned it because it looks like weeaboo trash garbage. Which, being fair, yeah, that's a fair judgment. The Atelier series has actually been going since the days of the PlayStation with Atelier Marie in 1997, only seeing its first Western release with the Atelier Iris trilogy between 2005 and 7. The series has always been defined by its rather unique tone and gameplay loop compared to other RPGs of its time. If you're confused as to what I mean by the gameplay loop, don't worry, I'll get to that soon. While most RPGs were in a sort of renaissance at the time, experimenting with things like job systems, deeper and more intricate stories, more complex gameplay systems, and the like, Atelier took a step away from that and decided to go for a more passive and subdued form of gameplay. Instead of being about eco-terrorists killing a deeply psychologically disturbed man who's been scarred by genetic testing, or even about a group of kids rebuilding a fractured and ruined world by traveling through time, it's just about a girl who has 5 years to practice her craft and graduate from magic college, something I find ludicrously relatable. Instead of focusing on a new and unique style of gameplay like an ATB or a job system, Atelier simply had a little grid-based combat system where every character had a small handful of skills, and man, just look at how riveting this gameplay looks. What made it stand out, though, was the ability for Marie to spend some precious in-game time in her workshop, synthesizing items for use in combat through alchemy. I know that some people may instinctively recoil when they find out that synthesizing is the series' core gimmick, but I think that the Atelier series pulls it off incredibly well, since it leads to gameplay that mainly consists of going out and doing your typical JRPG stuff to get materials, to synthesize more items, to go out and do more of your typical JRPG stuff. While this may sound like it would get boring quickly, another aspect of Atelier Marie that stood out helped to alleviate this a bit. The game incorporates some type of visual novel/dating sim element to it, which at least back in the day was a fairly innovative idea, even if that style of game is done to death nowadays. Every recruitable party member would slowly become closer to Marie as you adventure together until they'd eventually let her in on their issues, and Marie would maybe be able to solve it with a little bit of her alchemy, leading to a host of unique artworks and endings only findable if you take that little bit of extra time to really get to know and understand the characters. This gameplay loop of alchemize, adventure, associate? Fuck, wow, yeah, I guess that works, would become what Atelier is now most well known for. As I mentioned before, the series would later hit the West with the Atelier Iris games and then find its niche later on with the more traditional Manacamia games. Following those, Atelier Rorona would grace the market, selling about, 80,000 copies outside of Japan, which, for an already fairly niche JRPG in the West at the launch of the PS3, that's actually not that bad overall. The game would then later be re-released as Atelier Rorona Plus, taking some of the more dated and less well-received aspects out and reworking the game to be more like its sequels Atelier Totori and Maruru, as well as adding a little bit of additional content. This version would then be ported to the Switch, PS4, and Steam as part of the Arlen DX trilogy, which is the version I played and will be looking at today. Let me just say now, I would strongly recommend getting Atelier Rorona Plus in some form over the original. While the original isn't awful, Atelier Rorona Plus is more easily accessible and overall just better in many different ways. From having a traditional HP-MP system instead of skills being tied to HP, an overall better art style in my opinion, a better UI and engine, and many other things. Fucking moral of the story, just avoid the original Rorona like the goddamn plague. I found Rorona Plus at for $5. It's cheap. It's cheap. Just get Plus. If you wanted me to use one word to describe Atelier Rorona, I'd say it's comfy. It's not absurdly challenging unless you're going for some of the endgame content. The story isn't very complicated, but what it lacks in complexity, it makes up for with an incredibly satisfying gameplay system and a cozy world filled with lovable characters and oodles of heart. This isn't the type of game where you'll dive deep into an epic world and then leave a completely different person changed by the narrative, but rather the type of game where you'll open it up after a long day at work, put in an in-game month or two of gameplay, and then put it away for the night, relaxed and recharged for whatever shit will come at you the next day. Think about it less like Final Fantasy VII with cute anime girls, or Hyperdimension Neptunia with, just Hyperdimension Neptunia, but more like something like Stardew Valley or Animal Crossing, but, again, with more cute anime girls. Hell, Rorona actually starts a lot like your typical life sim as well. Rorona's alchemy teacher, Astrid Zex, this professional bitch, has done so little alchemy that the government of the Kingdom of Ireland has literally given her an ultimatum. Either start actually doing your goddamn job, or get the fuck out of our kingdom. Naturally, she takes advantage of her big bad bitch energy to dump it on Rorona, and you're then tasked with trying to figure out what the hell an alchemy is and how to do it before the workshop closes, and you're forced to enjoy the rest of your childhood with your loving parents who will support you no matter your poor life decisions, something that, as a dumbass college student, I can relate to all too well. On paper, this may not seem too interesting compared to other games that came out in 2009, like Final Fantasy XIII, Dragon Age Origins, or even Tales of Graces F. God, I feel fucking dirty just saying that. But what really sells Atelier Rorona is actually just Rorona herself. She's such an infinitely likable and fascinating main character to me. She subverts your typical JRPG protagonist tropes of being either the edgy hard ass or the typical naive girl by being a character with that weird Luffy effect like from One Piece, where despite her clumsiness and naivete, she's this genuinely charismatic character that just draws people towards her. Probably just because they want to protect her and see her succeed, and yeah, it definitely worked on me. I can have an issue getting on board with a lot of protagonists because of their weird personality traits or quirks, but Rorona is such a good blend of overly emotional and deeply determined that trying to make sure the workshop stays open was always on the forefront of my mind, if for no other reason than it was what Rorona wanted. Even if very early on the game does state that ultimately there's no huge negative for failing this task. And this actually helps, because keeping the workshop open is a surprisingly straightforward task. Over the course of 3 in-game years, you're given a series of 12 objectives that you need to fulfill. While some of these will require you to hunt a bunch of creatures or go to a new area and explore it to completion, most just need you to mass produce a lot of a certain object and deliver them to the castle. Isn't that bad? Wouldn't that type of progression need you to do a lot of backtracking and needless busy work to accomplish anything? Shut the fuck up, Ward. You like Thousand Year Door, and that game was filled with that shit. But yeah, no, I can totally see where you're coming from. A lot of time in this game will end up coming from running around areas you've already been to and picking up ingredients you need for synthesis, but it's honestly not as bad as it seems. For starters, you can pick up most common ingredients in many different places, and the ones that you can only find in a couple of areas aren't really needed for more than 1 or 2 important endgame recipes. You also get access to Hom about a third of the way into the game, an assistant to Rorona and professional precious child who can do gathering runs or basic syntheses for you, and once you get them, you probably won't need to do much backtracking at all. Plus, with the way castle deliveries work, you really don't need to do that much to finish the game. Hell, on my first playthrough, I was able to get the best possible story ending with ample time to spare, and I literally had to go back and record footage of a game over just for this segment here, because I straight up fucking forgot it was a thing that could happen. Yeah, no, I know, I'm such a badass. I feel one of the reasons for my sheer total amount of skill with this game is how lenient the time limit is overall. While most future Atelier games require you to spend in-game time for both gathering and battling, Rorona only has time pass when you travel, exit an area, or synthesize things. As long as you're in an area, you can spend as much time as you like gathering, exploring, doing your taxes, spending emotional moments with the squad, checking to see if you remember to subscribe if you like the video, leaving a rating and a comment to boost me in the eyes of the YouTube algorithm. Seriously, please, I'm desperate. Battling, really just about anything you want to do. Your only really restricting factor is your limited inventory space, but actually, hell no, if you find some time to make the secret bag item, you're not even limited by inventory space anymore, since you can just transfer stuff to your container at any time, so fuck it, I guess it's fair game.